Hello everyone, my name is Xuesu Xiao, a postdoc with the University of Texas at Austin. I'm presenting our work AppleD, Adaptive Planar Parameter Learning from Demonstration, in collaboration with Bo Liu and Peter Stone with UT Austin, and Garrett Wannell and Jonathan Fink with Army Research Laboratory. So the motivation of AppleD is to address the difficulty in deploying autonomous navigation in new environments. For example, if you are given a robot tuned in one environment, such as this outdoor space with urban buildings, roads, and grass, directly deploying it in another may not always work, such as this indoor atrium of the UTCS building. So the common practice for this is to tune the navigation stack again. For example, there is this nice ROS tuning guide you can consult. But when we look at the abstract, it states that maximizing the performance of this navigation stack requires some fine-tuning of parameters, and it is not as simple as it looks. One who is sophomoric about the concepts and reasoning may try things randomly and waste a lot of time. Our intuition is humans do this effortlessly. This is one of the lead authors, Paul, who is not specialized trained in robot teleoperation or robot navigation. But Bo can simply turn on the robot, grab an Xbox controller, and then teleoperate the robot through this very complicated navigation environment effortlessly, even on his first try. The central question we want to answer using AppleD is, can we squeeze more robust performance out of our existing navigation systems using learning from demonstration and limited human interaction, for example, teleoperated demonstration? So in particular, we are not interested in designing a brand new navigation system from scratch, but we are only interested in adding a machine learning component to augment existing navigation stacks. For example, if we are using this ROS move-based navigation stack, we don't assume any properties of this underlying system, and we don't need to change anything in it. We only want to devise a machine learning component which sits on top of this underlying system and interact with it. And through learning from demonstration, we are able to improve or augment the navigation's performance of those underlying existing navigation stacks. Some related work about using machine learning or learning from demonstration for mobile robot navigation. There exists a rich body of literature on learning from demonstration, and if you are interested in this technique in general, you can refer to this survey by Agor et al. In 2009. More recently, Pfeiffer et al. Has developed end-to-end navigation system using machine learning, which can directly map from perceptual input to motor commands. Wickedness et al. Has investigated an inner component of a navigation stack. Namely, they use inverse reinforcement learning to learn a terrain-based cost map. Even in the regime of parameter tuning, different approaches have been proposed recently which are specifically designed for one particular navigation system. Different from those approaches, our AppleD technique is agnostic to the underlying navigation system. Namely, the AppleD can work with any different kinds of navigation system. We propose to use behavior cloning to tune the navigation stack. So we describe the underlying navigation system, any system, as a black box function G, which takes in some sensor data and outputs motor commands. So G is also parameterized by a set of tuning parameters theta. So for example, these parameters could include obstacle inflation radius, max velocity, sampling rate, etc. And those are crucial in determining the navigation system's performance in different environments. So we use behavior cloning to treat this as a classical supervised learning problem. So we are seeking theta star to minimize the difference between actions of the demonstration and our function G. We can use any black box optimization technique to compute theta star with collected demonstration X and U. So this is the rough procedure of our AppleD pipeline. So first, we collect demonstration from human. So we turn on our robot, we grab our Xbox controller, we drive the robot around in the target environment, and we build a data set of X and U pairs. So here X is the sensor input, while U is the actions. So then with this data set, we use a black box optimization technique to solve for the navigation stack parameters. So in particular, we use CMAES in our implementation of AppleD, but in general, you can use any black box optimization techniques for this purpose. So we feed in our dataset D into a black box, and we also give our black box optimization access to the navigation system G. So you can compute a derivative of the G if possible. You can also query the function G with samples as well. But after you run the A black box procedure for a while, it will converge to the optimal parameter set theta star. So this rough procedure may seem okay, but there's one issue here, the context problem. So we observe that humans exhibit qualitatively different navigation behaviors in qualitatively different environments. So in that sense, one single optimal parameter set theta star may not suffice for different environments. As an example, you can see in this image, and in this complex environment, there is four different kind of regions, different kind of sub-environments. So we call it context. Like the first one showing in blue is kind of like a curvy corridor type of thing, and the second showing green is the obstacle course, and the yellow one is like a curving, very narrow corridor, and the fourth red one is in a very wide open space. So instead of one single set of parameters, theta star, we actually need multiple sets of optimal parameters for those different kinds of contexts. Now we are ready to present our entire AppleD pipeline. So first, we turn on our robot. We use our Xbox controller to collect demonstration and build our dataset D of X and U pairs. But before feeding the entire dataset D into the black box optimization, we perform automatic demonstration segmentation. So in particular, we use an algorithm called CHAMP, which given a sequence, a long sequence of demonstration, it can segment automatically the sequence into multiple segmentations. So each of those segmentation is called a context. And we want to find, instead of a single set of optimal parameters theta star, we find a set of optimal parameters theta k star. So each of those theta k star is responsible for the context k. And then we train a supervised context classifier using the input of the sensor to the label which context the robot is in, K. And based on this K, we can pick the right set of parameters, theta K star. During AppleD deployment, we use existing underlying navigation systems, such as this ROS move-based navigation stack. Of course, you can replace this with any other navigation systems, as long as the black box optimization technique can query samples from it. So we insert this learning from demonstration components on top of the underlying navigation, and the learning from demonstration components reads from the sensor input X and predict the context using our trained context predictor B. So the mapping M basically maps from the current context K to the optimal set of parameters theta K star for this context K. And this whole learning from demonstration components works in real time. So in the X from sensors are read in real time, and we predict instantly which context the robot is in and tune the optimal parameters on the fly. So we also did experiments using AppleD. So our robot is a ClearPath Jackal robot, and the sensor input is from a Velodon Puck. So the human demonstration is provided by one of our authors, Bo, and he has an Xbox wireless controller to teleoperate the robot. We also designed a very complicated obstacle course to test the AppleD framework under different kind of environment, different contexts. So here I'm going to show a video showing the navigation performance of the vanilla move-based navigation system. So without augmentation from AppleD, using only the navigation parameters provided by ClearPath Robotics, which is the manufacturer of the robot. So as you can see in the video, the robot is trying to traverse through this curving, very, very narrow corridor. And sometimes the robot is not able to find a feasible action to go through this corridor. So it slows down, it may even stop, or in the worst case scenario, it may even back up and may have the chance to knock over the cardbox wall we built. Of course, by that scenario, we usually stop it. We manually intervene using our Xbox controller and drive the robot to a new location for it to start over. But you can see it fails multiple times, and this is exactly the problem we described before, because the default parameters are not fine-tuned for this particular environment, so the navigation system may not work very well. So this is a longer video of our human demonstration. As you can see, Bo grabbed his Xbox controller. On his first try, he was able to successfully navigate the robot in this complicated navigation environment. When Bo enters this narrow corridor, we see none of the issues we observed from our last video. So the robot can navigate very smoothly in this narrow curving corridor with Bo's teleoperation. And when Bo enters the open space, he increases speed to reach the final goal as soon as possible. This is another qualitative shift of navigation behavior demonstrated by the human. So in this video, I'm going to show you AppleD during deployment using the human demonstration collected from our last slide. So we first use demonstration segmentation to segment the entire demonstration into 4 different contexts. For each of those contexts, we run behavior cloning to find the optimal set of parameters for that particular context. And we also trained a context predictor using supervised learning so that the robot knows which context it is located in during deployment. The upper portion of the video is the vanilla move-based navigation performance without AppleD augmentation, while the lower portion is the AppleD performance. As you can see, the vanilla move-based has trouble navigating through the first curve context, while AppleD can simply just power through without any problems. In the second context, the obstacle course, both navigation system works okay, while AppleD is navigating slightly faster. In the third context, the vanilla move-based has lots of trouble. It went back and forth many times and almost knocked down the wall, and we have to manually intervene to stop collision from happening. But AppleD is able to navigate through the entire narrow corridor smoothly and safely, just as Bo, our human demonstrator, has demonstrated before. In the fourth open space, AppleD learns to increase the maximum speed to reach the goal as soon as possible, but the vanilla move-based navigation is only navigating using an unnecessarily slow speed. So just some numbers here. So the 4 rows here corresponds to the 4 different contexts in our physical experiment. We compared the AppleD navigation performance to the human demonstration to the default move-based stack without the augmentation from AppleD, and also AppleD with no context. So this is only with one single set of optimal parameters theta star for all 4 different contexts. So apparently our AppleD pipeline can achieve the lowest BC behavior cloning loss and the shortest real-world traversal time to go through all 4 different contexts. What is very interesting here is AppleD can even outperform the human demonstration. So that is the true power of an autonomous navigation system, a computer-driven robot, after we correctly fine-tune the navigation parameters for a particular context. So remember, we also want our AppleD framework to be agnostic to the underlying navigation stack. So we also tested AppleD on a different robot running a different navigation system. So these are BWL bots we have at UT. They are running a different local planner called Eband instead of the DWA used by the Jackal robots we showed earlier. So they are also operating under a different set of parameters. So if we use the default parameters recommended by the Eband designer, we will achieve this oscillatory behavior in the straight hallway as shown on the left-hand side, this red curving trajectory. And as roboticists, we have manually tuned those parameters to eliminate this behavior. But the best we can do is shown as the orange line in the middle. But using AppleD, we were able to completely eliminate this unsatisfactory behavior by achieving a perfectly straight line here. So this is just a very short video clip showing AppleD working on a different robot, running a different navigation system under a different set of navigation parameters. So in conclusion, we present AppleD, adaptive planner parameter learning from demonstration. So AppleD utilizes existing navigation systems and is agnostic to the underlying navigation stack. So it tunes navigation parameters by simply providing a single teleoperated demonstration. And it can adapt to different contexts in complex environments by adjusting their navigation parameters on the fly. So we validate Apple D on two different robots in different environments with different navigation systems.